What's going on YouTube? My name is ginj-tcg or Chris, and today I'm back with the first episode of the How to Pokemon TCG series. The series where I'll be covering a whole bunch of different aspects about the Pokemon trading card game. The first one I want to do is just a complete resource guide for the TCG and everything about it. So pretty much is going to be all the online resources that are 100% free to use that I use to help myself, like come up with decks, create decks, find inspiration, find decks, find tournaments, buy cards, buy singles, buy decks, accessories, everything. I feel like pretty much, like, any time I'm prepping for a tournament, whether it's a local, a regional, a cup, a challenge, or even just casual play with my friends, like, I'll use a combination of all of these websites at different times. Some I obviously use more than others, and I'll talk about that as I go through the bunch of different websites. So this is going to be great for people, whether you're experienced or new to the game, you know, whatever part of the TCG experience you're at. I feel like this will be great just to kind of go through certain resources that you might not be familiar with, or just help you learn all of the resources, and then you can pick your favorite on where to start. So if you're an experienced player and you know some of these websites and you want to skip through to different parts, all the chapters will be in the description, or not like the description down below, but also just a video bar. So if you click on and want to go to a different part, you know, that's totally fine. And if you have any resources or websites or things you want me to use in general, please, you know, let me know in the comments down below, and I would totally make a part 2 to this with a whole other set of resources. So again, if there's any other part that you feel like I missed, please let me know. And one thing I wanted to say before I really get into all of the websites, I did not cover any of the YouTubers that I love, and I feel like that could be a whole separate other video breaking down all the different types of like YouTubers and what people give what type of information. And I watch plenty of myself. I mean, there's probably like 7 if I had to take a guess. I watch really frequently. And I mean, I watch a whole bunch more infrequently, but that's being said, like, you're watching this on YouTube, just look up anything you want, and I'm sure you'll get a bunch of great Pokemon TCG YouTubers. I personally haven't found one that I'm like, wow, I really hate this or don't like this, or this person has no idea what's going on. You know what I mean? I feel like everyone who's a content creator, at least that I've seen, I feel like they're all great players. They all seem like great people, and they all have a lot of great information on their channels. So I'd like to just say thank you for checking out my channel and going through this series. But obviously, if you want to learn more about the game, go watch other YouTubers. I mean, that's a great way to get invested, learn different decks, learn different plays, learn different metas, you know, just a whole bunch of different perspectives on how to become an amazing player. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. If you want that to be its own thing, I'd love to make a small video on it. Or if you want to just like, if you're a YouTuber, content creator, in any way for the TCG watching this, and you want to hop on my podcast and talk about just your experience and help, you know, do your own snippet through this channel, I mean, you're more than welcome to. Just let me know. With that being said, let's get into today's list of the resources for the Pokemon TCG. The first resource I would like to talk about is personally my own little affiliate link. It's TCGPlayer. This is like the eBay of really any card game. It's like the eBay of just card stuff, period. You know, any accessories, things like that. So if you click my link in the description down below, you'll be taken to TCGPlayer, and you'll be supporting the channel in a small way, which is no extra steps to you, since you would go there to order decks. But let's say, you know, you're trying to get an amazing deck like Charizard EX. If you just type in Charizard EX, oh my god, I can't type. You know, in the search bar, you'll just be taken to a whole bunch of Charizard EX, like, material, anything that's there that people are selling, you'll be taken to. So let's say you just want the standard prize pack Charizard EX. You know, you could go here, you could see how much it's sold for, the current listings from stores around the country, and you could order it from whichever place you want. And, you know, it's got a bunch of cool features, like with the cart. So let's say you have a bunch of different things in your cart, you will have an optimized feature. You know, I should do that real quick. Let me just Charizard. So let's get like 2 different Charizard things. Let's throw this guy in the cart, and then let's throw just one other Charizard EX or whatever I see quick. There's no Charizard EX, we'll just throw this one in there. So you can hit add to cart, and then when you go to your cart, you have a nice optimized feature, so you can try to get the cheapest cart possible. So right now, our cart is $900. That's insane. And it comes down with optimized, you know, 2 different packages, but it'll be $200. So, you know, I usually go with the verified sellers, but any seller will work fine. Usually any seller would be the cheapest, because it might just be an individual person selling it, not like an official store that necessarily is verified yet. So you could just select this cart, and boom, you got the same cart for relatively cheap. This website also does an amazing job. I'm just going to clear my cart real quick, of selling TCG accessories, because again, it goes from any store in the country. So let's say you want like the Mousehold deck box. At least there's the one I'm thinking of in mind. I hope it's here. Yeah, this one. So let's say, you want some random deck box. Yeah, you could just get it shipped through TCGPlayer and order it through here for $14, which honestly isn't even that bad. It's one I'm actually looking at right now because I love this deck box. So TCGPlayer, an amazing website. Definitely go check it out. Again, if you're going to this website anyways, make sure you use my link in the description down below and you'll be supporting the channel in a huge way. It doesn't make you pay any extra, it just supports me and the channel. So it'd be greatly appreciated, and I'd like to say thank you to everyone who already uses the link, and thank you to anyone who's going to use the link. If you are using it, just make sure you make your order within 48 hours. But of course, use TCGPlayer. They got awesome stuff. They got literally anything you need TCG related. Doesn't matter what type of card game it is, it's here. Go check out TCGPlayer. So after that, now that that's done and said, that's the only place, honestly, I really go to buy cards to play in real life in my big tournaments or local tournaments, really, just period. That's where I go to get cards. So the rest of the resources are going to be all of the resources I use to understand the meta, learn different decks, find insane decks, create decks, test decks without even having to get them on TCG Live. There's just a whole bunch of different resources I got here. The first one I wanted to start with is Justin Basil. Justin Basil's website is a frequently updated website that covers a whole bunch of different things. So I'm just going to break down all the parts of it. The first part I wanted to break down is the meta decks, which looks at the current standard format. So if you go to Justin Basil, you'll get a list of what he believes are the top 8 decks in the format right now. And I feel like more or less like there will be plenty of times I don't, 100% agree with Justin Basil. I mean, don't get me wrong. But I feel like I'm always like, yeah, like this top 8, maybe 2 or 3 decks are different, or even 1 deck is different, but I totally agree with, like, these 8 decks being the top decks right now, and I think that's just because, it's just that, like, personal difference, and I've played against certain decks more, maybe, so I think they're more annoying or better than they are. But it's not to say that this isn't an amazing list that's frequently updated about the current meta. I think this is a great place to go for multiple reasons, and I've got a couple other websites which will break down meta and help you come up with your own top 8, but this is one I'll frequently go to, especially when new sets come out and how that set impacted, because you'll get like a pretty stock list generally from someone who did amazing at a regional, as well as a basic strategy description. And this is the part that I really like about Justin Basil's website, is you'll get key cards, you'll get a couple videos to watch the archetype, but then you'll also get a basic strategy. So if you're a new player and you're just looking at cards and you're like, whoa, this is overwhelming, I have no idea what's going on, you could kind of take it back a step and look at that basic strategy and try to figure out, okay, if you use Drago's V-Star to power up its attack, you could get Hisuian Guja and the discard pile using Rolling Iron, which can then let you do 200 damage while taking 80 less damage from attacks through Regidrago, which is pretty awesome because it might be easier to set up than a Guja V-Star deck. So I really like the basic strategy that's provided with every deck, as well as the watching the archetype, because it just gives, especially newer players, a really easy and a really fast way to just, one, learn the deck, find a good list, and tells them where to go to watch this deck in action at a very high level, because I mean, look at this. Azul GG, Trust Your Pilot for the win. Amazing YouTubers, definitely good players. All Out Blitzel, Jester Entertainment, same thing. These are all like good resources that you should watch, and a lot of these people are just good players and do amazing at regionals as well. So hearing them and their thought process as you play the deck is a great way to pick up the deck. The next thing I wanted to talk about through Justin Basil's is what's next. Now, this is probably the feature I use probably the most to see upcoming releases. I'm not super huge into like diving into what's coming out in the next set the second it's like, revealed or whatever, because I'm trying to enjoy like what cards are out and playing them. But as we get closer, like for me, the Surging Spark set is coming out this week. I pretty much only go to Justin Basil to look at the set. So you got like the perspective set list, you got card translations. I usually go to the card translations page because they come out in Japan first and I can't read Japanese. So Justin Basil does an amazing job of finding super accurate and amazing translations for all the cards, and then it breaks it down nice and easy. So of course there's visual set lists. If you're more of a collector and you don't care so much for I mean, this set is coming out so soon. Yeah, I guess all the English versions of the cards are out, but sometimes these will be in like Japanese if it's like early in the release set. But, excuse me, I digress. If you're more of a collector and you just want to look at arts and see what you want to copy, I mean, you could scroll through and find a bunch of cards, or you could just kind of jump. So if you're like, I really only want the secret rares, you could just click on the secret rares and boom, just scroll through these and see which arts you want to collect or you want to chase down yourself. So it's a great resource for that. Again, I use it for the card translations more as a player, so as I get closer to the set, I could kind of go through. A lot of times I'll just jump to the trainers and see what trainers will impact the format. Amulet of Hope, one I'm really looking forward to. You know, like, this is perfect. I get the card, so I know kind of what the art looks like, but then I can just read the exact text on the card and get an idea. Okay, like this week when this card comes out, I've got a really fun deck I want to make that revolves around the Amulet of Hope. Or let's say there is, I mean, I don't think Cyclozar EX is too insane. Last I read it, but let's say this card was like super fun, super cracked, and I really wanted to make a deck with this. You know, I could read through it early and kind of work on that like deck building before the set comes out. So once it does, I'm already ready to just kind of jump on, and I've got an idea on what deck I want to play in the new set. So Justin Basil's website is what I use to really figure out, you know, pretty much all the new cards, all the new sets. You also get release dates and stuff. And then there's some other things on the website that I think are amazing too, such as like rotation. There's some other informative things, as well as Justin Basil's recent videos, which are pretty fun actually. The Eternal Format videos I do watch every now and then. But the other thing I go to the most on Justin Basil will be the budget decks, because you would be surprised on how often a budget deck could cook. So the budget decks are decks that are really cheap, as you see, and Justin Basil will give them, you know, some sort of rating right here. So Wug Trio at a meme potential, and we'll probably get to one somewhere where it's like, we got casual play on the Dondoza deck, we got Gardevoir at a high competitive potential, obviously. So, you know, you'll get like a competitive rating on cheap decks. So just because a deck is cheap doesn't mean it's not good. Like, if you look at that Gardevoir deck box, I mean, that one, also you could just click the decks up top right here and just jump to it. So let's say Gardevoir EX. Dude, $30, you're getting a, well, I did not highlight the right thing. You're getting a fully set up Gardevoir deck that is ready to use the second you open it for 30 beans. That is not a lot of money at all. So a lot of times I'll go to this for two reasons. One, if I just want a cheap deck that I don't already own, I just want to get like something new, spice it up, maybe bring something fun to my locals, because I've been reusing the same 18 meme decks for the past couple months. You know, I'll go through Justin Basil and I'll look at a lot of these budget decks, because this is updated pretty frequently too. The other thing which is nice is, again, you just get like the basic strategy, you get key cards, and you could just like learn how to build decks for cheap and learn how the deck works. I think this is great for newer players. I don't think it's worth it to necessarily buy the newest, most expensive deck for newer players. I'd say learn with your friends in your own, you know, your own kitchen table, and just get some of these budget decks and just learn like fun gimmicks and learn how to have fun playing the game at a casual level before you jump into that competitive level. That way, when you jump into it, you already got some knowledge for like the rules, how to play, how different Pokemon work with each other, support Pokemon, attacking Pokemon. And then you also have a fun deck in your back pocket that when you go to different tournaments, maybe you're like, you know what, it's just a small local tournament on like a Wednesday. Why don't I just bring that Mimi starter deck that I first played with? So I do really like these budget decks. And it also just helps give you some inspiration sometimes on some new decks when you're just bored of the format or don't necessarily know what to play. So that's Justin Basil's website, at least all the things I use from it. Of course, there are many other tools on pretty much all of these websites. I am not going to be diving through every single one of them. I'm just going through what I use the most, and I feel like I've come a long way as a card game player. I'm not saying I'm the best in the world by any means. I don't even know if I'd consider myself an amazing player. I think I'm like good at best, but I think overall I've got a solid knowledge for the game. So right now I'm just sharing pretty much all of the resources I use in these websites. There are other resources like the deck building resource. You know, if you want to look at these and get proxies, actually, this is a great place to get proxies. It's not where I get mine, but amazing proxies here. You know, you want to look at like some guides on how to build decks and stuff, go through the website, click through. I'm going to be making a deck building video myself, so like I'm not going to take everyone through the deck building guide, because that is a massive video by itself, and I don't want this to be like a 1400 hour video. So that's what I use from Justin Basil, and again, for the other websites I'll be going through just what I use. So that's Justin Basil's. Let's jump into the next one, which is Limitless TCG. This is probably the most frequently used website regarding the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't used it before, also the links for all of these are in the description down below. So, you know, just look down there for the links to all of these websites. But Limitless TCG is probably the biggest one. When you first click on the website, like through whatever search engine, you'll be taken to this part. This is a two-part website. This is the page where you're not logged in. This is the page where you're logged in. So going through, again, there's a lot of tools on Limitless. I am going to be going through what I use the most frequently. That being said, there are hundreds of other things you could do on these websites. I'm just kind of diving through what I use. So most of the time, I'll go to Limitless for the tournament results from big regionals. They'll post regional special events world championships through the unlogged in page on Limitless. So I don't even know how to say that name, so I'm not going to try, but the most recent regional from 3 days ago, you could see all of the day 2 deck results. So all of the decks that made day 2 and had that elite record to be like the top 10% of competitors for the regional or whatever the maths out to be. You could see the player, the country they're from, the deck they're playing, and if you click this button on the right side here, you could get the exact list they played. So you could look at the cards for a lot of people, even including me. Like, it's just overwhelming to look at a bunch of words. So I'll usually go to open as image, and then I can just look at all the pictures of the cards, which is much easier for my brain to process. And I'll be like, oh man, wow, I didn't know. I mean, it is pretty stock Drago list, but let's say you were surprised by canceling Cologne being in. It's like, okay, I respect that this guy was really respecting the Iron Thorns matchup. It's very smart for a Regidrago player. It makes sense that he really included that one of. But a lot of times, like, when you get to some notably, like, crazy players like Tord, who makes some insane lists a lot of the time, you can open his deck and kind of look through and look at cards you didn't necessarily expect to see. So just at a glance, I feel like this is a pretty standard Terrapagos, unless there's something big I'm missing, which I don't think so. You could see like, okay, man, that's an interesting tech in this deck. I wonder why he included that. And you could go through and see, oh man, out of all the people who played Regidrago, which you can find out if you just click Regidrago and you go to latest results, you could be like, wow, out of all the people who played Regidrago, like 8 out of 9 of them or whatever played Canceling Cologne. That means you should probably put Canceling Cologne in your deck right now. So just clicking on the deck, you can see the latest results from each regional, as well as the best players who have gotten the most points with that specific archetype. So that's usually what I'll go through with the unlogged in page. I usually will look up one other feature, which I'll go over in a second, but just going over the regionals as they happen really helps familiarize yourself with the different decks. You could click on the players. If let's say you follow Adrian a lot, Adrian Velasco, you could click on him and follow him through all of his tournaments, or you could search players. So if you just hit the search bar and you filter 2 players, you could just look up whatever player you want to follow and just see how they're doing. So see all the regionals they go to. Chris, that's me if you didn't know. So I made day 2 at 1 regional, and then let's say I was day 2ing at a bunch of regionals, which I'm definitely not at that point. I don't even go to many. You could see, okay, this player, this guy played this deck, and he's been playing this deck for the past 3 regionals. Man, he's loving that archetype, seeing a lot of success with it. Maybe I should give it a shot. So you could follow your favorite players through this as well as going through the tournaments. When you're actually looking at the tournaments, if you hit, I believe it's statistics, yeah. When you hit statistics, you could see not only the results on like what deck won, got second, got third, so on and so forth, but you could see, okay, Regidrago kind of dominated this tournament by being the most popular deck to make day 2 at the Philippines Premier Ball League event. And then like Iron Thorns, only had 1 count, so it wasn't as popular, but it still kind of showed up, and that's where you'll see a lot of the rogue day 2 decks. They won't be those top performing decks, and they might not necessarily win the tournament, but when you go through statistics, you can see what interesting archetypes made the cut. So that's another good thing to go through with this. One of the big things, this is a proxy printer. This is what I use. So let's say you have a card you want to use. So I'm just going to take a card code from the TCG Live. I exported a deck to use for this specifically. Let's say I got a code right here. Oh, card not found. Oh, do I need probably just this? Oh, you know what might be throwing it off too? I should get rid of the 1. The 1 is like the count. I have a list pulled up for other resources I'll be going through. So I just had a stock list ready. Let's say I wanted to make this Agislash a proxy. You can print this Agislash and just a whole bunch of cards, and you can make it black and white. You can make it color. But that way you have a legit cutout that is the size of a Pokemon card. So I usually go through Limitless to make a lot of my proxies. You saw I could go through it with Justin Basil. I think either work. They're the exact same. But the most important thing is you get the exact card and you get the measurements already made. So when you cut it out, they'll be the size of a card that you can just put on top of like an energy and then stick in some sleeves and shuffle through and play yourself. So I think that's amazing to print proxies, especially if you have a free place to do it. Currently I'm in graduate school, so I get access to my school's printer for free. Like I get unlimited prints. So I'd be lying if I told you guys like I haven't pulled up to school like a few times in my life and just printed out a whole bunch of cards just to practice through, because a lot of times I find testing and just figuring out decks when I have it in person, it just helps me put together and draft stuff out more. So that's something I try to take advantage of when I can. Another great tool is the, where is it? The tabletop. Actually, the deck builder's solid. I do use the deck builder a lot, and I should show that off. These are a bunch of random decks that I'll use when I've got an idea. Generally, it'll happen when I'm like in class. I don't really do this now that I've been in grad school, but when I was in undergrad, if I had like a deck hit me while I was in undergrad, or just at a place where I'm not like in my apartment making cards, I'll just hop on Limitless and I'll just throw up the deck, you know, like throw out the deck real quick. So when I saw a Sinister list, I'm like, yo, I need to find this for later. I got something cooking in my mind. So what did I do? I came through and I just entered the deck through here, you know, use the search engine. So let's say, you know, you're looking up Sinister. You could just look at all the Sinisters there, and just kind of throw what you need in the deck to get cooking. So, you know, a lot of times, like when I go through this deck builder, it's when I'm like out and I'm on my phone or I don't have something. This is where I kind of jot down those ideas, and a lot of these won't be completed until I get back to my apartment and I can sit down and finish the idea. But just the core of something, I'll totally throw in Limitless. This is the most recent TCG Pocket video I made. For TCG Pocket, I think this is a great place to kind of showcase and export your decks and kind of play around with the deck style. I feel like it's such a new game. There's not as many resources to figure out stuff yet, but Limitless has an amazing place to get the TCG Pocket cards, you know, for a deck. So I just made a video on this deck. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It was a ton of fun to make, ton of fun to play, and I think it works really well. And it's not too hard. Like, there's 3 EX Pokemon, and they're not like super rare, or like, you know, insane or anything. So I feel like just overall fun deck. So that's one of the other resources I use, and I got one more if I could just hit back enough. There we go. We got the Tabletop Simulator. So this is an amazing simulator if you just want to get like a couple hands played through of a deck. So sorry, I'm just copying a list right here. So let's say I want to play this add-to-slash list that I've cooked up. Also, fun video on my channel you should check out. When you enter the full list here and hit import, if something is incorrect, for example, if I took like the F out of Chorus's Tenacity, it would just be like, this Chorus's Tenacity is not found. Then you just go through and realize, oh yeah, I forgot the F in the code. That makes sense. You just enter it, hit import, import successful. You're all good. So when you click on the deck, you could see the entire list that you're playing with. And this is pretty much just a way to play through without wasting credits on live, without wasting money on cards in real life, without wasting ink to print proxies. You could just play through a deck and see if you have any fatal flaws in your deck, if you like the feel, if you like the vibe. Just play through a couple test hands. So when you hit turn 0, it'll always shuffle the deck and then draw you one card as if you took your turn. Actually, you know what I just realized I forgot to do? I forgot to hit new game to get the prize cards out. So you'll see you took 0 mulligans on top. It'll lay out some prizes face up. Again, just this is a very big testing method, nothing insane. And then you'll be able to play. So if you right click any card or any word, you'll get all of the actions you could do with it. So let's say like I played Iono in my starting hand, you could right click, shuffle all to bottom, shuffle all into your deck. If you have research, you could discard everything. Discard a random card sometimes happens from effects. But generally you can also right click the Pokemon. And you've got a bunch of different keys. I've memorized like most of the ones I use, like active is A. So you can just throw something in active, hit turn 1, and then get rolling. So then you can just throw things up to the side. You got space for stadiums, Lost Zone, your bench. Let's say this was a Pokemon, you got space for your bench. You can attach cards like crazy. And it's just a nice way to lay it all out for you. When you right click on the deck, you get all the prompts as well as right clicking on the word. So let's say, you know, I use Buddy Buddy Poffin and I wanted to bench Hone Edge and Cleffa. I just did that by hitting B. Then you could close and shuffle it. You know, at the bottom, that is the prompt. You just close, shuffle, and you could just drag it to discard. So it's just a good way, again, to get the vibe for the deck you're playing. Just play through and do a couple practice hands. You know, you could even flip the coin. So if you're trying to practice going first and second, a lot of times for myself, I'll flip the coin, and I'll say every time I flip heads, I'm going to act like I'm going first, and every time I flip tails, I'm going to act like I'm going second. And I'll just play through maybe like 3-4 turns of, you know, like this deck without an opponent and just get a vibe for like, okay, you know what, this deck is clicking. Or maybe like, wow, no wonder I had so much space when I built this deck. I completely forgot to throw in my rare candies in a stage 2 deck. I'm a bum. And that makes sense why I had 4 spaces for like trekking shoes or whatever. So, you know, you could kind of go through and fiddle out your mistakes going through the Tabletop Simulator on Limitless. I think that's another amazing resource to use through the website. Past that, there's not really too much more I use on this while not logged in. So to log in, all you do is hit play. If you want to make an account, it's free. It takes about 10 seconds to set up. And if you do, you'll be taken to this page. This is a page where I'm currently logged into my account. So first thing I do all the time, I am probably checking this tournament page probably every other day. I go to tournaments, I go to completed, and I just edit the tournament filter, straight up just take in Pokemon TCG. Then I'm looking through it. I'm like, all right, you know what? This is a pretty big tournament. Let me see how people did. So I'll look, same thing as the regionals. I'll look through the top decks. I'll hit the meta games, see the most popular decks, or kind of just scroll down. All right, what are my rogue decks? What are the fun decks that I might make a video on? That I might look to for some inspiration as a rogue player myself. This is the best resource for that. You could still, when you click on players, you could see their records and what deck they play against, so you don't get that on the regional page. But when you click on, like, usually the name, or the deck here, you'll see all the players that played the deck in this tournament. But when you click on the name, you'll see their matchup spread. So you'll be like, all right, this Gardevoir Bayonet player lost to Palkia Noctowl in the last round, but overall kind of came up on top with the best, what is it, win percentage. Oh man, that's actually an insanely close tournament. That's crazy. Actually, there's a huge tie for first. All these players went 7-1. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, you can see, okay, their exact list, just like before. You can open it as an image, and see all the cards they played. Oh, Gravity Stone, that's an insane tech card. Why'd this person play Gravity Stone? And I'm just gonna kind of go through and break down why that was a choice. But then you can also copy the deck to clipboard, just throw it in TCG Live, open it as an image, click on cards, learn about the individual card, or you can go through and see their matchup spread and how they did. When you go to metagame, you get a whole lot more information as well. Let's say I wanted to learn how Charizard's doing, and I'm trying to become a better Charizard player. I could look at this tournament and see, wow, a bunch of people did kind of rough, went off to a rough start with this deck, but there were some high-performing players with Charizard EX. That's good to know because it's a deck I'm looking into. You can then hit the matchups and see, wow, this deck was cooking, gouging fire. They went 2-0. But as you got down, whoopsies, the wrong thing. As you scroll down, you'll be like, ooh, I had a rough match against Lost Box. This isn't a huge tournament, so you're not getting too insane results about matchup spread. But you can see, okay, Bayonet Gardevoir wasn't a great matchup, but it wasn't bad. We did come out on top with 55 win percentage. We went 5-4, but 5-4 isn't amazing. So maybe I got to look at that matchup more and see how I can make that matchup a little bit better, especially because it was so popular. So that's super important to know. With the tournament filter, it's also a great place to sign up for tournaments. So if you hit upcoming, and I'm actually thinking about playing a pocket tournament, you could throw in TCG Pocket, throw it and be like, wow, 400, 300 people in these tournaments. All you do is just hit register, put your in-game name in there. So my in-game name, whoopsies, I just punched my mic. My in-game name on Pocket is ginj-tcg. You just throw it in there and hit register, and boom, you're good to go. You'll be taken to a deck registry page. So if you hit dashboard, you have to submit a deck list for most of these. So you just come in here, export your deck list, and submit it right here, and you'll be taken to the tournament page, which is a great place for people to get involved in the game, try to learn different tournaments, get themselves involved in big and meta surrounded tournaments with a whole bunch of meta decks and high levels of competition for free at their own place or wherever they're comfortable, and they got a nice setup to play the game. The other big feature that is used through Limitless is the decks page. So there is this list every deck that has been played in whatever set you want. So if I wanted to take it back to Obsidian Flames, I could look at the Obsidian Flames format, but of course right now we're in Stellar Crown. This will show you every deck ever played through a Limitless tournament in the Stellar Crown format. So a lot of times I'll hit show all and just scroll through this whole thing. I want to look at the meta decks, I want to look at the rogue decks, I want to look at the piles and everything in between. And I'll be like, yo, our Ogerpon Noivern, huge deck. Love that deck. You could click on that, and you could see the top performing players, their record, their place, the date they did it. So if they did it at the beginning of the set, and this deck did well because, people were experimenting and didn't find out the best way, or if it's more recent, this deck has kind of been popping off recently. You can sort it by, date that it came out and see, okay, this is the most recent list. These are how these players are doing. You could also sort by player. Which I believe, it just makes it alphabetical. When I go through, I usually sort it by date or score. I don't care about place as much. I care more about someone getting more points than necessarily getting first place and having less points. Although this could be taken as a better record because they had one less loss, but this person also had one more win. So, you could click on the list, same as before. Actually, the list on that is private. That tournament doesn't have them open to the public. You click on the list for most decks and kind of go through and see, open this deck as an image. Oh, man, I played Rock Chestplate in mine. All right, that's cool. Other people are playing it, seen big success. I'm definitely going to keep Rock Chestplate in my Noivern Ogerpon list. You could also see, they played Pokeball. I didn't play Pokeball in mine, but I kind of love that they did. I think that's a really interesting way to go about it and a fun way to make sure you're getting your Noiverns or kind of just whatever Pokemon you need. And since you're not playing a high count of Pokemon, maybe Great Ball is in the play. Maybe Pokeball is kind of nice. So, I like going through and just seeing what the people are playing. But then also, if I'm seriously considering Ogerpon Wyvern for a regional, you could go through the matchup spread and really break down, how well are certain matchups. So your Raging Bolt matchup is amazing. Charizard matchup, amazing. Regidrago matchup, amazing. Your Gardevoir matchup, trash. So if I'm like, ooh, I'm expecting a lot of Gardevoir at this next regional, guess what I'm not going to play probably? Ogerpon Wyvern, because it's got a rough time against Gardevoir. I'll still test it and see if it's as bad as the numbers say, because the numbers could say one thing and it could be a completely different outcome. But I'll know going into it, okay, Gardevoir is my bad matchup. But if I've gone through it, I'm like, you know what, this deck only has one bad matchup, and after some testing, it's still a bad matchup, but it's just the one, I might still take it and just accept that, every deck kind of has a counter, and I just got to hope I don't hit my counter at that point. So definitely an option. That's pretty much all the stuff I use through Limitless. Again, I think this is an amazing website where you can get a lot of amazing information. I'm not saying that's all that's here on Limitless. These are just the things I use. So I'm going to jump into the next resource. And the next resource is PokéKabook. PokéKabook takes all of the tournament results from Japan and puts all their decks in fun little images. So I'll go through this before a new set comes out and try to see how people in Japan were cooking a list before it comes out here. So I've already got an idea on kind of, what's going on. So let's say Melodic is good for the wall decks, and I love playing a good wall deck. You could click on Melodic EX, and yes, every card is in Japan, but once you are familiar with the cards enough, I look at Baxcalibur, I kind of know what Baxcalibur does. And I've also played enough where I can handle looking at these decks and not knowing what these cards say and just kind of cooking something up based on these. But I can look through. Of course, I can translate the page as well. Where is that? That would be... I don't remember. There's a translation through somewhere where you could just see, like, I think this is like tournament winner. You'll see the top 4 here, so you can see not how big the tournaments are, but if they won, got top 4, top 8, top 16, you can see all that stuff while kind of scrolling through and looking at the decks. A lot of times, and I mean a lot of times, so when I'm really bored in the format, I'll click on other here and I'll scroll all the way through these, and if I'm not feeling, like, let's say I'm like, I don't even want to make a deck with these guys, I'll scroll down and I'll hit, like, it's this set, I believe, is what we'll be playing in. Actually, no, it's the combination of both these. So I'll click the Super Electric Breakers, the straight translation. I'll click these and I'll scroll through and I'll look at all of the insane other decks. And a lot of times this is where I could find something insane. That like this right here. I have no idea what this is, but after this video, I'd be lying to you if I said I'm not going to check it out. You got Mesprit, Uxie, and Azelf in a deck that actually won a tournament. And even if it was like a small locals, God, that's gonna be such a fun video to make. Like, why would I not go through this and look for some hidden gems? And these decks probably won't be the next meta-breaking deck, but a lot of times you'll find just a fun rogue deck or a fun meme deck just to play for the next couple days when you're feeling kind of bored in the format. So that's one of the big reasons I love PokéKabook. Honestly, I don't go through too much else on their website because Japan is in a different format, so their tier lists and stuff are going to look different from the meta and the scene we're playing in the US. So that's really all I go through. I can see how they've been cooking up like Dragapult lists, which are super popular, and see the difference between Japan and America. But you also have to remember Japan plays in a best of 1 format, whereas in the US we play in a best of 3 format. So there are innate differences in the format that allow for certain rogue archetypes and stuff. Like a lot of gimmick decks will work better in Japan because they only need the gimmick to work once, whereas in America we have to make it work once, have our opponent learn it in that one game, and then make it work again, which is a lot harder. So I feel like that Azelf deck might be better. That what is it, oh my god, why am I blanking on the trio's name? Whatever the trio is, that might work better in Japan because it was just a one and done type gimmick, but in America in a best of 3 format, that might be a bit harder to pull off. So that's PokéKabook. I'll use it every now and then. I think it's still a great resource and one I honestly utilize a lot, especially when I'm kind of bored or feeling like I'm in a stale format. The next website I use all the time is PokemonCard.io. So this website is where I'll do some deck building and some deck creation, although I primarily, when I'm on the fly, do that through Limitless. But a lot of times, similar to PokéKabook, I'll go through advanced deck search, view all decks. And this will be for when I don't necessarily have a deck in mind, but I have a card I want to use. So let's say I wanted, you can see all the stuff I've looked through here. Let's say I wanted to look up, a fun Dondozo Tatsugiri combo. You could search these, and if you just put it in the search bar, it'll pull up every deck that has been named Dondozo Tatsugiri and like something else. So a lot of times I won't put it in the name search. What I'll do is I'll hit format, I'll go to standard, I'll go to filter, and I'll look for contains cards. So let's say I want to make a deck with Dondozo. I'll click where's the release range? It should be this guy. I'll click, usually the most basic art will have like the most decks popping up. I'll click the most basic art and I'll scroll through and be like, wow, you know, a month ago someone made Dondozo. You can see how many views it got. The format, how much it is on TCGPlayer, which is always kind of nice too. But then you can go through and see how they created Dondozo Tatsugiri pretty recently, because this isn't a deck that's been popping off for a while, or pretty much ever. I don't think Dondozo Tatsugiri really ever had that single prize appearance, like something like Ancient Box or Lost Box might have. Which makes sense. I mean, decks where you have to discard Pokemon always have been a little bit harder to see higher shares of meta play. But, you know, I'll go through this when I have a card in mind that I want to make a deck around, but I've got no inspiration. I've got nothing popping up in my brain about even where to start with the thing. I've just got a fun card and want to see kind of what the literature is telling me. You know, I'll go through Pokemon Card IO. Again, you could create decks through here. You could sign up for an account. Accounts are free. I've got my own account. I'm not signed in, actually, which I guess I probably could have signed in before the video. And you could upload your own decks. So I've actually been considering putting all of the decks I put on the channel through this website. So if you're interested in me having my decks on Pokemon Card IO, so you could just export them easy, or look at the deck, give me comments somewhere else, you know, let me know. But of course, all the decks on my channel are always in the description in all of my videos. So if you just, you know, want the list and nothing else, you could just go through the description. I don't necessarily need to upload it to Pokemon Card IO. But if that's something you'd want me to start doing, so you could also get prices to a lot of these decks, I mean, please let me know. I'd love to use Pokemon Card IO. I already scroll through it enough, so it's no extra hassle to me. Just let me know. So that is Pokemon Card IO. I'm actually going to save Trainer Hill for last, because this is the one I use the most, period. For making decks, building decks, whatever. So I'll go through that last, because there's a lot to unpack. The next is the PvP Tabletop Simulator. So similar to Limitless's simulator, this one is for actually 2 players. So you could practice a game. Oh, whoopsies, I hit the wrong thing, so we'll paste the same deck in there. Let's say I had a friend on call and neither of us wanted to upload a deck to TCG Live because we didn't have the credits and we don't want to order it yet because, you know, we don't want to waste the money on a deck we end up not liking. This is the same setup as Limitless. However, you can create a room and just play against a player. So same thing, you got the set up portion of the game, how many mulligans, your prize cards are face down because you can play against an opponent, but it's just a more like, it's the same setup as Limitless's Tabletop Simulator, except you can play with someone. So a lot of times for testing, me and my friends will start on Tabletop. Once we get a really, a relatively refined list, we'll move to TCG Live, and then use credits to test on live. And then once we've tested there, we'll actually order the deck that we're going to play for a regional. And that's kind of how we progress through. Play the game, and I just hit spacebar there and reset the whole thing because my thing is set up, or clicked like on the setup. So yeah, it's the same thing as the Limitless Tabletop, you know, part of the client. This one, again, it's just for playing with a friend, so poo poo stinky is the code we'll usually do a lot because we have the sense of humor of a 2-year-old. And, you know, we'll do some testing through here. Now that I said that out loud, we're gonna have to come up with a new room code. The cost of making videos, man. Alright, but, yeah, it's the Tabletop Simulator. Now we're gonna get to Trainer Hill, which is where the most brain power, I think, out of all of the websites is dedicated to. This is what I use for coming up with my top 8. I use a mix, like for my podcast, I do a meta review. I do top 7 decks, top 3 rogue decks, as well as top tech cards and stuff. I use Trainer Hill pretty much in its entirety to help myself do that. And I think that's because I also have more of a well-rounded knowledge of the game, so I don't have to spend as much time through Justin Basil or Limitless or stuff like that. I'll just go through Trainer Hill. So this might be something you use once you're more experienced with the game, you're more familiar with the game, you know all the decks out, you know, you've just got more of a grasp, or you're trying to really immerse yourself at a higher level of like competitive analysis. So I will hit the meta overview every time. And first things first, I'll always show more. I want to look at as many decks as possible every time I go through this. And you'll be given like a filter. So I always edit the filter here. So I'm going to look at tournaments with a minimum of 50 players. The reason being, any less players than 50, I feel like the tournament wasn't big enough to give you an accurate representation of how well that deck did against a relatively large portion of competitors. That I feel like is just a basic statistics thing. The more in the population when you're trying to do research, the better, more generalizable and more accurate it, you know, usually is. So that's why I go to 50. I'll also go to 2 weeks back. So right now, the day I'm recording this video is Tuesday, November 5th. So I'm going to go back to Tuesday, October 22nd, and it'll look at both online tournaments through Limitless as well as major tournaments such as regionals, you know, the cups, the world tournaments, you know, whatever's in this date and player category, and then you can hit apply. So it kind of combines all of Limitless into one site, which is again why I really like it. So first things first, I'm just going to take you part by part. I will look at the top decks by overall play rate. So what decks is meta? So what the meta is, at least the way I defined it. The meta is not necessarily defined, I mean it in part is, by what is the best deck in the format. But to me, all the meta is what is the most popular deck being played. Generally, the most popular decks are the one that's winning the most. Because it's winning the most, people are going to play it more, and because people play it more, people are going to counter it more, and that's how metas keep changing. But it stems from what's played the most, and that's all I mean when I talk about, like the top decks. Top meta decks might have a rogue pick in there. So for example, for Worlds, I didn't think Iron Thorns was going to have a huge play rate. I wouldn't necessarily see it high up on this overall ladder, but I knew it was going to have a good performance and fall into that meta category. So I guess it's like a hybrid between the two. But you want to look at play rate, because play rate is going to be what's the most likely deck you're going to hit when you go to regionals and stuff like that. This will help you make your predictions on what decks are already popular. The next part is this part on the right. So this part on the right, you can break down by going top 32. So what percentage of decks, what deck has made top 32 the most frequently? So this 10.4% of the, Raging Bull, I just knocked over my cards, lost my train of thought all in one go. I apologize. Let me just start that part over. When you hit top 32 or anything, so we could say tournament winners, what decks have won tournaments? Raging Bolt is clearing. Raging Bolt's at 12.8%. So what that means is, out of all of the tournaments that met our tournament filter criteria, 12.8% of them were Raging Bolt. So Raging Bolt might not necessarily be taken or played most of the time, like Goldengo, for example. Goldengo's not played a lot. So let's say the Raging Bolt was down here. You can't see it at the 15 spot. Let's say this was Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt is played a super low percentage of the time, but it's winning all these tournaments. That probably means it's an amazing pick right now. You should definitely look into playing it because it's doing really well. Obviously, Raging Bolt has the most play rate, so that example wasn't 100% real. But you get what I'm saying, where it's these percentages, not the percentage of the deck played. It's out of all of the tournaments, how many times, what percent of the tournaments has that deck won or gotten top 4, top 8, top 16, top 32, top 10%, top 25%, stuff like that. So top 10%, if you're going to a regional, is really good to look into, because generally top 10% is what makes day 2. So you can kind of break down a lot through just these two graphs. The next graph, I'm not gonna lie, is a little overwhelming. So I can't really move my camera too much, but you see enough in the top half to kind of get an idea of what's going on. So what this is it's a massive matchup chart. So if you look at the top corner, we're just going to look at Bayonet Gardevoir and just break it down as simply as possible. Again, using the filters that you set above, and you can create whatever filters make sense in your head and you want to math by, please math by those. Those are just the filters I use. I go by 2 weeks and 50 players. So if you look at Gardevoir Bayonet, you could break down, okay, the mirror match is generally always going to be 50-50 or close to it. Ties kind of throw it off, and you'll get how the percent is made in the top right with the little formula here. And you could see, okay, Bayonet Gardevoir actually has an amazing matchup into Charizard. It's looking at 60%. It's 38 and 25 with 2 ties. But those generally are just IDs and stuff like that. I feel like ties usually come from intentional draws more so than a legitimate draw with a lot of the decks. So that's something to keep in mind in general too. But you can see Bayonet Gardevoir, out of all of these tournaments, has done amazing. So, on that one tournament I clicked on, I believe Charizard actually had a better matchup into Bayonet Gardevoir. And although that is what happened in the tournament, overall in the past 2 weeks, Bayonet Gardevoir has done amazing into Charizard. So, that's why I kind of break it down through Trainer Hill more, because you could get a lot more of what's involved. So, let's say I was looking into playing that Ogerpon Noivern deck. You can add that archetype to the top, and it'll just stick it in the chart with all the times that deck has popped up. So oh yeah, perfect. You can see it. It's under my camera. All of the black spaces are because it hasn't been played that much. So there are, it's never been played against Bayonet Gardevoir. So there's no results on it. You really can't break that down. But you could see that against Iron Thorns, it's got an 83% win rate. It's actually never lost. It's undefeated against Iron Thorns. So, with more rogue decks, you'll have a lot more spaces in your chart. So generally, I like to just add 1 to maximum 3 rogue decks at a time before the chart gets a little too hectic and too many blank boxes. But you can stick a rogue deck in here as long as it's rogue enough that it's got an archetype, and see how well it fares against all the other decks in the format. The other thing that's really interesting to know, actually, you know what? Let's go through Ogerpon Noivern. So if I wanted to go through Ogerpon Noivern, you could go to deck list and kind of scroll down and look at all the decks that have gone through here. Again, I'm going to click on Ogerpon Noivern since I've been using that as an example frequently. And once this loads, you will get a card analysis. So you can see that in this deck, 100% of the time, there's Ogerpon and Noivern. But what's really interesting that this website does is, you know, again, you could do your tournament filters and your deck list filters and stuff like that. You want decks that include Scoop Up Cyclone, for example. Actually, no, maybe this wasn't... Oh, no, it's perfect other cards. Yeah, okay. You know, so let's say you only want lists that use one card. I don't recommend doing that. I think it's more beneficial to look at everything and what people play, even if it doesn't include your card, because there's probably a reason why. Not saying that that card is bad, but there's a reason why maybe one card was valued over the card you're looking for. Like maybe you were trying to play Turo and not Penny, but then as you go through, you see Penny super popular, and it's like, okay, it's not that Turo's bad, it's that Penny's more effective, so more decks are playing Penny. Or you could look at excluding cards, which is, again, something I really don't do. I want to know why everyone's playing whatever card they are playing in this archetype. But I digress. Once you've set up your filters and you've done your thing, you get a matchup spread, so you get a comparison line. Similar to the big chart, you'll just get one chart up top with the deck you're playing into every deck in however many this is, you know, just the general most popular decks being played. You'll get the cards being played as well as the count. So this bar graph under each card is the count of how many copies people are playing in their deck. So you'll get a maximum of 4, and if it's 0 cards, it just won't be here. So you'll get a minimum of 1 on the bar graph. So if you look at the general list, the skeleton, if you will, like Ultra Ball has some good results, for example, you will see that 93% of the time, people are playing 4 copies of it. However, there is that 7% of the time where people are playing 3, 2, and 1 copies of the card. So it's really interesting to know. I think this helps so much when you're looking at energy counts for a deck. You could see that 100% of the time there is, oh wait, no, excuse me, I totally got the percent wrong. Oh my god, that's so embarrassing. 93% of the time, Ultra Ball's included. And then you get the breakdown of how frequently that card is played in it. But if you look at energy, basic fighting energy is included 100% of the time because you need it to attack with Noivern or Ogerpon. And then you get the copies, the card count copies of how many times people have played it. So you get 5 copies of the card, you get 4 copies of the card, and 3 copies of the card are all listed here. However, the 5 copies of fighting energy is the most frequent. So generally, that's going to be the safest energy to play. If you look at other cards, these will be cards that have low play rates, but have seen, you know, somewhat respectable play rates in a deck. So, you know, 73% of the time people are playing Scoop Up Cyclone. The other 13% of the time, the A-Spec seems to be Prime Catcher. You know, obviously, there is still a small percent left, so people have played some other random A-Specs here, but they're so small that it's not even going to show up on the other cards. I think Crispin is an amazing card in this deck, so it being played only 13% of the time is shocking to me, and I might be like, wow, that's shocking, I wonder why people aren't playing it much. Let me do some testing with it and make sure Crispin's actually worth it, and not just, in theory, perfect in my brain. So, you know, that's something that I definitely recommend worth looking into, especially when you're creating decks. For rogue players, bringing a rogue deck to a really big tournament, such as a cup, a challenge, or especially a regional, I really recommend using Trainer Hill and using this breakdown to see what text people are including in your archetype or in your deck in general. So, of course, that's pretty much it for today's video and the first how-to guide. I don't really, at least off the top of my head, use any other websites. All of these websites are free to use. Even if you have to make an account, they are all free in its entirety on everything I showed you to use. Maybe sometimes you just sign up like on Limitless to get the tournaments to register for, but you know, if you want to use any of these websites, feel free. If you want me to cover more of the websites or cover other parts of the websites in the future, please let me know. I would love to do a part 2 on this complete resource guide. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I definitely have more how-tos planned for the future, such as deck building, understanding the meta, you know, just a whole bunch of different things. I actually got a nice list that I'm kind of working through, and I want to spend some time making these decks, making these videos for you guys to enjoy. So I hope you guys enjoyed me going through all of the resources I use. If you need any clarification, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below, or join my Discord server and just, you know, ping me in the Discord server. I never get upset when people do that. I think that's a great place to ask questions and get, you know, real feedback from real people, obviously, and myself included. You know, if you have a question and I can answer, I would love to help anyone out in my Discord server. Of course, it's free to join. If you don't know what Discord is, just look it up. It's like I'm trying to think, it's like Skype back in the day, or it's like having a group chat, but just for like gamers and nerdy things is pretty much all I use it for. So I have my own community Discord server for the channel, and I would love to answer any questions or give some further explanation. You know, just for any of these websites or any questions you guys have in the future or ideas on what how-tos you want, just let me know in the Discord server or comments down below. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, feel free to use my TCG player link. If you looked at any of these decks, including Ogerpon Noivern, and you're like, wow, I'm interested in ordering that, use my TCG player link, and make sure you get the deck within 48 hours. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in to the first how-to video. I appreciate all you guys for making it this far, skipping through to whatever portions are necessary. And yeah, have an awesome day. Stay epic. Peace.